The rain had not let up in 2 days, and my cabin on the edge of the Whispering Pines forest felt even more remote than usual. I had chosen this life of solitude after the city chewed me up and spat me out, a quiet existence where the only voices I heard were the birds, the wind, and the occasional deer cracking twigs underfoot. So when I saw the small figure huddled at the edge of the clearing, soaked to the bone and shivering, my heart nearly stopped. She couldn't have been more than 6 or 7. Her hair was matted to her face, her dress torn and filthy. She didn't speak at first, only stared at me with wide, pale green eyes, not like any child I'd ever seen. Her skin had an odd hue, like the soft moss that clung to old trees. She looked otherworldly. "Hey," I said gently, crouching. "Are you lost?" She nodded, trembling. I took off my flannel and wrapped it around her shoulders. "Come inside. You're safe now." Inside the cabin, I lit a fire and gave her warm broth. She sipped it silently, still watching me. It wasn't fear I saw in her eyes. It was curiosity. She didn't act like a lost child from town. She didn't ask to call anyone. She didn't even seem to know what a phone was. "What's your name?" I asked. She hesitated. "Alira." "That's a beautiful name." She looked at the dancing flames and murmured, "I'm not supposed to be here." But I ran. I had to. Ran from where? Before she could answer, a crack of thunder startled her, and she clung to my arm. "Please, don't make me go back." "I won't," I said. "Not until you're ready." That night, she slept curled by the fire while I sat in my old rocking chair, trying to piece together who she was. Something about her presence stirred ancient instincts in me. A story untold, half-remembered from childhood tales my grandmother used to whisper. Over the next 3 days, Alira slowly opened up. She didn't speak much about where she came from, but she described a place deep in the woods, where the trees never sleep. She spoke of glowing mushrooms, creatures made of fog, and a woman with long silver hair who sang to the stars. She called her mother. "She'll be looking for me," she said softly on the 3rd morning. "But she won't be angry. I just needed to see if the stories were true." "What stories?" "That some humans still have kind hearts." I didn't know what to say, so I just smiled and ruffled her hair. "You're safe here, Alira. I promise." That afternoon, I took her for a walk through the pines. She seemed to know every bird's call, every tree's age. She even whispered to a fox that darted out of the brush, and it listened. Magic. That was the only word that came to mind. On the 4th day, she was gone. I woke to the fire burned low and the blanket folded neatly. Panic clawed at my chest. I searched the forest until my voice was hoarse. No trace of her. I returned to the cabin, heart heavy, wondering if I had imagined the whole thing. Then, 3 days later, I heard it. A soft knock at the door. When I opened it, the world seemed to pause. There she stood, Alira, smiling, clean and dry, and beside her was the most radiant woman I had ever seen. Her silver-white hair flowed down her back like a river of moonlight. Her eyes were the same pale green as Alira's, and her skin bore that same subtle earthen glow. She wore robes that shimmered like dew in the sun, and when she stepped into the threshold, the very air shifted. "You are the man who sheltered my daughter," she said. Her voice was music and thunder, power and grace. I did. She was lost. She was seeking." Alira reached for my hand and held it tightly. "I told you he was kind." The woman's gaze softened. "Few would have offered such kindness to one who is not of their world." I swallowed. "You're not from here, are you?" She shook her head. We dwell in the realm between, hidden to most, guardians of the old forest. Once, long ago, our people and yours walked side by side. But men forgot us, hunted us. Only the stories remain. I looked at Alira. And you came here to see if the stories were true? She nodded. The woman stepped closer. You cared for my child without asking who she was or what she could offer you. That is rare, precious. I tried to speak, but she raised a hand. There is more, she said softly. Before she returned, Alira told me of your kindness, your loneliness, your sorrow. We feel such things keenly. She looked around the cabin. Small, simple, quiet. You left your world to find peace, and yet your heart still yearns. I nodded slowly. I've spent so long trying to forget the past, I forgot how to hope for the future. She placed her hand over mine. Her skin was warm, her touch gentle. Then perhaps we can heal together. My breath caught. What do you mean? She knelt beside Alira and smiled. My name is Saraline. I have watched over these woods for centuries. But I have never known a human who touched my heart the way you have touched hers. And now, mine. The air seemed to hum with a sacred rhythm. The wind outside whispered through the trees like a lullaby. I do not ask lightly, she continued, but I have seen enough of you to know you are worthy. Worthy of what? To walk between worlds, to share your life with us, with me. I stared at her, unable to speak. My heart thundered like the storm from days before. I'm just a man, I said hoarsely. You are a man who gave without expectation, who protected a child not your own. That is not just anything. I looked at Alira. She beamed up at me, hopeful. And in that moment I saw a future not of loneliness, but of wonder. A world that existed just beyond the veil of belief, now open, because I dared to be kind. We were married in the grove, where the first flowers of spring bloomed through the snow. The trees bent in blessing. Creatures of legend stood witness. And I stood in awe of the life I never imagined I could have. I became guardian of the border between worlds. Husband to Saraline, father to Alira. Sometimes, travelers still find their way to my cabin, lost, cold, afraid, and I welcome them in, because once a little girl with moss-colored skin and ancient eyes knocked on my door and changed everything.